Waking up each day felt like a battle. The exhaustion never lifted, as if her energy had been drained before she even left bed. Headaches would appear out of nowhere, lingering for days, making it impossible to focus or enjoy life. No matter how many trips she made to the doctor, the tests always came back the same. Everything looks normal. But deep down, she knew there was nothing normal about how she felt. And on top of it all, her weight began creeping up, slowly but steadily. She tried eating healthy, doing what she thought was right, but nothing seemed to work. Instead of progress, she was left with frustration and a growing sense of defeat. This was Maria's reality, a cycle of exhaustion, unexplained pain, and unanswered questions. Today, she'll share how she found her way out, reclaiming her health, her energy, and her life. If you've ever felt stuck in your own health struggles, this story may hold the answers that you've been searching for. Okay, all right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much again for joining me today, Maria. It's really lovely to have you here, and I'm really looking forward to exploring your story and the journey that you've been on. Perhaps we could kick off by you just telling us a little bit about yourself, kind of who you are and what you do.
Of course. So I am 42. I am originally from Chile, but I've been living in the UK for the past few years. I work here. I live with my husband and my two kids. I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. So my schedule is usually pretty busy. I have a full-time job, which probably means that I don't look after myself as much as I probably should. But yeah, so that's me. I pretty much spend my days either working, looking after the kids, or, running from one place to another, if I'm honest.
Typical mum type life where you're
Yeah.
busy, you're doing everything, working lots, and probably not having a lot of time for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, which was probably one of the things that I was a little bit scared about going into the program was like time management and,
Yeah.
how I would deal with that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it worked out.
Great. And we'll definitely dig into that a little bit more. So let's start with talking about the struggles and the challenges that you had before joining the program. So I know that energy levels is something
Mhm.
that you mentioned to me. So tell us a little bit more about what was going on with your energy levels and how that was impacting you on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so if I'm honest, I spent probably the better half of the first few months of this year either going into a sickness or coming out of a sickness. Just it felt like I could never really get properly better. And so my energy level was really low. I was very tired all day. I after like an 8 hour sleep, I would wake up feeling absolutely, like I hadn't gotten any sleep at all. And I just felt really tired. And I just didn't think that was normal. I'm quite an active person, always been. So, and I'm 42. So I've always been quite healthy. So it felt very much like a change, like a sudden change from what I was used to. You can have off days, and we're all tired in specific times of the year, but it felt like it dragged on and just would never stop. So I went to the doctors, to the GPs. They ran some tests. I thought, maybe it's menopause or like what do I have? But I probably have something. But everything turned out normal. Like all the things that they were testing for were saying I was healthy, but I didn't really feel well.
How did that feel to be told that everything's normal and kind of don't worry about it when you knew that there was something going on? There must have been something going on.
Well, I mean, it is frustrating because you feel like you're making it up, which, I knew it wasn't the case. And then you start thinking, well, maybe, like I'm like overreacting. Maybe after 40, everybody's just meant to be very, very tired and feel like this. But I can be I'm a journalist, so like I love like a good research. So I just went online, and obviously with a grain of salt, because you can read pretty much theories for anything. I started to just kind of try to understand what could be if it wasn't like the normal thyroid or the things that the GP was testing for. And actually that's how I came across you guys. You know how Instagram works, as you start to consume certain type of content, then
Yeah.
and that's how I think I came across one of your videos, and it just, what you were saying, and I think you were explaining exactly what I was feeling, which is everybody was telling me that I was fine, but I just didn't feel like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so easy to like gaslight yourself
Yeah,
into thinking that you're just making it up, or just making things out to be worse than they are. And sometimes it's only when you look back on it that you realize that
yeah.
actually you were really suffering during that time. I know that headaches were something that you were struggling with as well. Tell us more about that. What was going on with those?
So I've always been a headache prone person since I was young. So I kind of always assumed that that was normal, just to get strong headaches and then just have them for days. But then it got worse. So I would spend the better half of a week just having a headache. And it
Right.
didn't matter what I took, it wouldn't go away.
Hmm.
And but also it wasn't, because you know how if you start throwing up and you can go to like A&E, it wasn't as bad. It just was very debilitating, because if you have a headache, then you're moody. So like asking your kids not to be loud, or and then on top of it, I have work, and so like you're not feeling up to having constant meetings and stuff. So it it started to feel like every time I got a headache, I would get anxious, because it was like, how long is this one's gonna last? Like, is it gonna be a couple hours if I take some ibuprofen, or if it's gonna be like a couple days of me feeling really, really poorly? So definitely that was, I guess, one of the things that I was really worried about.
Yeah, and I think the combination of the low energy and the headaches must have been having a massive impact on your work and your relationships and just your general day-to-day quality of life.
Mostly family life. I honestly became this grumpy, moody mom that just it felt like I was constantly making an effort to want to be with my kids, which I hated because I love them and they're really fun and obviously tiring, but like I do want to be with them, but it just felt exhausting. And then obviously that had an impact on the relationship with my husband, because
Mm.
he was always, or not always, but like constantly having to say, just be patient, like have a little bit. And so yeah, definitely wasn't like the best. And I think that's kind of what pushed me to not settle for
Mm.
like, oh no, you're fine. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not fine, this is not normal, there's something here that should be better.
And it's great that you recognize that, because particularly energy level wise, we do often assume that it's just normal to be tired, particularly when you're working full time and you've got kids. We kind of get told that actually it's normal to be tired, but it isn't normal. It's a sign that your body is lacking something or imbalanced in some way. And addressing those things can
Mm.
help you to feel a hell of a lot better so that it's not impacting your relationships and your work and all those things. I know another big thing that you mentioned was that you were eating healthy and yet your weight continued to increase. So what was going through your mind when that was happening and you were stepping on the scales and seeing your weight increase?
Well, I'm quite petite, so like a couple of pounds extra, you can actually like right away tell.
Mm.
And then I've always been pretty steady with my weight. Even after pregnancies, I would pretty much just go back to how it was. So I had started to notice that even though I hadn't changed much of my routine or the way that I ate, I was just gaining weight. It felt like I would breathe and I would gain weight. And what I thought was eating healthy at the time. And, I'm not a fan of gyms. So even though I do go a couple times a week because I feel it's needed, it's not something that I enjoy. And in my mind, I wasn't really willing to sacrifice the little time that I have to do things that I love, which is like crafts or baking, to add extra sessions on, like, to go to the gym. Some people may love that. It
Mm.
wasn't me. So I thought, there must be something that can help me, that it's not just eat less, because I
Hmm.
felt like I was hungry all the time, and also not having to like kill myself doing something that I didn't really enjoy.
Yeah, because that's never going to be something that you're able to sustain, is it?
Right.
So you said that you did a lot of research and you kind of reached your breaking point when you were struggling with your energy and your headaches and everything and kind of come back normal from the doctors. And then you obviously discovered the Nourish method. So when you first came across that, you must have been skeptical at first. What was kind of the thing that drew you in?
Funnily enough, I wasn't that skeptical. My sister is very vocal about gut health.
Mm.
So it wasn't something that I hadn't heard before.
Hmm.
So it did make sense to me. I guess my biggest fear was I didn't have the logistics in the house to dedicate hours to, a program that meant having to like cook different meals every day, or, I couldn't deviate so much to what I was already doing
Yeah.
because it just wasn't sustainable. So I think my main worry was, how do I tackle this and also don't drive myself, crazy in the process. And I remember going attending one of a webinar that you ran,
Hmm.
and everything that you covered in terms of, if you're feeling like this or if you're feeling like that, it was like check, 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 like all of the things that you mentioned I was feeling. So I said, I think it's just willing to try it, because I felt like I had tried everything else, and different to other programs that, because there are other things being that I found online.
Mm.
You offered a session beforehand to just
Mm.
kind of tackle and address what my worries were, and I really appreciated that, because it's a commitment in terms of times and also an investment, so you want to be sure that you're doing something that can have an impact.
Yeah, of course. You want to make sure that you're putting your very limited energy
Right.
into the right thing. So yeah, that's really helpful to know. So once you started, what were some of the first changes that you started to experience?
So I started, same as everybody, and I think the first thing that I noticed was that I was just a lot less bloated
Mm.
overall, like not just tummy or gut wise, but like hands. I
Mm.
just felt less bloated. And that was pretty quickly into the program, maybe like the first couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I've always had like a lot of like stomach issues, which is one of the reasons why I've always like stayed away from onions and garlic and anything that's too like spicy, or because I always felt like those were the things that made me feel bad after a meal. I've now learned that's not the case, but at the time that's what I thought. So I started to realize that I could eat a lot more things without feeling bad. So I think
Okay.
that's the first thing that I really kind of noticed.
That's amazing. So you actually managed to expand out your diet and eat a bigger variety of foods without the bloating and the repercussions that you normally
Mm-hmm.
had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think if I look back, I don't know exactly when I stopped getting headaches. Somewhere along the line, I realized I haven't had a headache in weeks, which
Yeah.
was weird at the time. Now it's weird when I get one. And I
Right.
usually can find the reason very quickly. It's either I'm gonna hit my period, or I had like a poor night's sleep, which is makes sense, like
Hmm.
that's normal.
Yeah.
But I would say probably a couple months in, I was able to realize that I wasn't getting headaches as often as I did before.
Mm. And how often were you getting them before?
I don't know, maybe 3, 4 times a month, but like long ones,
Yeah.
so they would last for a couple days. So it felt like I spent, a quarter of the month just kind of dealing with coming in or out of a headache, like a strong
Mm.
headache.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Wow. That's a massive change then. And
Yeah.
then what about the energy side of things? When did you notice that start changing?
I also think it was maybe month and a half into the program, maybe two, where I just realized, and it also kind of coincided with the summer, so like the longer days
Hmm.
before the program. Honestly, 5 p.m. and I was done. Like I was
Mm.
ready to just go to bed. And then I realized as I went through the program that I just 7, 8, 9 p.m. and I was okay. I could
Wow.
watch a movie. I could have a date night with my husband. I could get together with some friends, and I wasn't feeling like I was just dragging my body to the next thing. So yeah, I would say probably between like the first couple months, you start to see all the changes, and then as you more move forward into the program, you realize that it's not a one-off. Like
Yeah.
it's
It's not a
and
fluke.
wow, this is sticking, which is great.
Yeah, wow. I'm so happy for you because that is such a big chunk of time every day. When you
Yeah.
think over the course of weeks, months, or years, all those hours of you feeling tired and not really feeling like you can do anything or enjoy that time in the evening, it really adds up. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. So what do you think in terms of changes that you made to your nutrition or to your self-care? What things do you feel had the biggest impact on your health and well-being?
So when I started the program, and I remember talking about this with Lara, the first call that I had with her, I can be very obsessive, and I'm a perfectionist, and that
Hmm.
can sometimes be contraproductive.
Hmm.
So from the get go, I set myself a goal of 80/20. So 80%
Right.
of the time, I was gonna, live by this as much as possible, but I was allow myself the grace of the 20% so that I didn't fall into like an abyss of feeling like I just couldn't manage it. So and I focused on the changes that I could do more efficiently. So I completely changed my breakfasts. I very much embraced the no grains, high fat approach, and I just realized how much I really enjoyed the breakfast, and it just filled me for a long longer. I wasn't snacking at 10 or 11 a.m. in the morning. I didn't really feel hungry again until lunch, midday. And you always hear like the low fat yogurt, the low fat whatever. And I was doing exactly the opposite, and it was working. It
Mm.
was really working. So that's definitely one thing that I changed a lot of how I approached, which for me is honestly the most important meal of the day for me. I can skip lunch, I can skip dinner, but I just cannot start my day without breakfast.
Hmm.
So it's really important for me to start feeling good about it. And then I also eating from the rainbow, which sounds now so simple and so obvious. But at the time I realized for me, veggies were just green leaves, which is great, but
Mm.
like there's so much more than that.
Yeah.
So I started to like eat things that I usually wouldn't eat before: purple carrots, peppers, all kinds of colored veggies. And I think that also was very helpful because it just made food more fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I always think that, we kind of assume that when we're changing up our diet, it's something that can feel quite boring and restrictive and like we're going to
Mm-hmm.
miss out on things.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like the experience that you've had is that you've really expanded your diet and it's become something that you enjoy a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't feel like I'm missing out. And when I felt like I was missing something, I would just have it. If I
Mhm.
wanted a slice of bread, but then you learn within the things that you are not supposed to have every day, there are types and quality of things. So like it's not the same to have like a sourdough sliced with like an avocado and an egg than have like a sliced supermarket. It's so different. So like I said, I kind of gave myself the grace to, if I was feeling something and I really wanted something, I would just have it.
Yeah.
But it quickly the cravings were not that great. So
Mm.
even if you think, oh, I was really missing sugar or not a lot, and then if I did, I would have like a good piece of, dark chocolate, or you provide so many recipes on little snacks and things that you can just keep in the fridge, and it makes it easier to
Mm.
just have like a little chocolate bowl of almond butter or something. And yeah, so you can also learn, even when you are like stepping outside of the program, to do it in a very smart way.
Eat intuitively and listen to what your body's telling you. I think that's so important because we can't always follow a plan. We need to have some flexibility and we need to be able to respond to what
Mhm.
our body's telling us. And it sounds like you came into this with the right mindset of not doing everything perfectly, because we definitely have women that join the program who are in that perfection mindset, and so often it stops them from even starting
Mm.
because they're just so worried about doing something wrong. But actually, if we can do something, then we're going to be moving forwards in one way or another, and everything will fall into place after that.
I absolutely agree. And it can be scary at the beginning because you do think it's going to mean a lot of changes. And when you look back, it did. I did change a lot of it, but it's not everything at once. It's at your own pace. It's what makes sense to you. So, in a way, it's a lot less scary than you think it's going to be. But at the end of the day, you do end up making a lot of like really positive changes. And
Mm.
it also changed the way I look at food and approach food with my kids, with my husband. I have my oldest is a very, very picky eater, which was also one of my worries because I don't want to have to like cook for her and for me and for the like, I just cannot do that.
Yeah.
And so just trying to bring her, or even not even bring her, but show her that there's so many options, and she now loves things that maybe she wasn't willing to try before. She's very picky still, but
Mhm.
working on
Yeah,
it.
that's great. I mean, I always think that the best way to kind of influence a picky eater is to just lead by example,
Yeah.
rather than trying to enforce rules or anything like that. But I'm really glad you've mentioned that because it's a common struggle, and I know that it's something that a lot of people worry about before joining the program because it feels like another hurdle to
Mhm.
overcome. So on a similar theme, have you managed to kind of achieve what you've achieved without spending hours and hours in the kitchen every week?
I enjoy cooking. So
Mhm.
every like a couple of days a week, I don't mind actually cooking something from scratch. Obviously, I try to be smart about it in the sense of like doing something that will, maybe last me for a couple of days, or
Mhm.
but the amount of recipes that you provide really do allow you to pick and choose what makes sense to you with the time that you have, the resources that you have. And I'm sure some people do a lot more of cooking from scratch than I did. But also, you start, like, again, understanding how you can be smart about it. I've found a good couple of like local organic produce providers that where I can get like really good quality hummus or stuff that I don't need to cook, and then
Mm.
make my life easier during the week.
Mhm.
And then when I can, I'll definitely try to do a couple things that will benefit everybody, not just me.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
takes, honestly, more than time. It just takes the willingness to want to do it.
Yeah, I think once you've made the decision that you're kind of all in and this is the path that you want to take, then that's almost the hardest part, isn't it? Making that decision.
Yeah. And then also it's funny because it's hard to get other adults to understand what you're trying to do because everybody keep telling me like, "Oh, you're on a diet." I'm like, "No, I'm not on a diet.
Mhm.
Not actually. Like I can eat everything. I'm just eating differently.
Yeah.
I'm learning to eat differently, and it's working."
And it's critically, it's not temporary either, right?
No,
It's the kind of your way of eating from now on, hopefully forever.
absolutely. I mean, I've technically been off the program for more than a month now, and it doesn't feel like, oh, now I can have this or I can have, like it's
Yeah.
just the same. And like I said, I still apply the 80/20. And if I'm feeling like I want something different, I'll just have it.
Mhm.
But because of what I learned through the program, I feel a lot more equipped to make smart decisions about what I eat, how I eat it, when I eat it. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we mentioned your energy and your headaches and about how they had improved, but we forgot to talk about the weight side of things. So before you were finding that the weight was going up despite eating healthily, what's the current situation?
Yeah. So I'm pretty much back to my always weight. So this is what I've waited, I would say, for the past 15 years since I stopped being a teenager and being lucky at that, that time in your life. I lost about 15, 16 pounds, which I didn't think I was going to manage to do. If I'm honest, I started with the goal of going back to my regular always weight,
Hmm.
but I felt like if I can just achieve like a 70% of that, I'll be happy. And I'll say I'm pretty much 95% there. It's been slow, which is good because it stays off.
Hmm.
It it is not a miracle program. Like you're not gonna go a week into it or a month into it. Oh, I've lost 10 pounds. It's not how it works. And see, if there's something I can tell whoever is thinking about doing this program is just hang in there because it does work. It just it's your body basically needs to rewire itself to work properly,
Yeah.
and that
Yes.
takes time. But yeah, so I lost about 5 centimeters of waist, so it's like a size and a half. And I just feel very comfortable now with myself, with my weight. Although weight was one of the reasons going into it, one of the important reasons. I don't want to make it sound like I don't care about weight because I did.
Mm.
I didn't feel well or right with my body, and now I do. But for me, if you ask me now, what was the biggest gain? It wasn't the weight. It was definitely just the energy and just feeling well across everything, just energy, less bloating, less headaches, less pain across everything. Even when my kids get sick, I now don't always get what they bring into the house, where it felt for a few months there where I couldn't even step outside without like grabbing, whatever germ passed near me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a massive win in itself. It's so frustrating when you get cough after cold, and every time you come into contact with someone who has a cold, you know you're going to come down with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's such a good sign of a strong immune system when you start
Yeah.
becoming more resilient to all of that. And that has implications for other areas, not just resisting the coughs and colds, but when your immune system's stronger, your body's better at managing inflammation and just generally keeping everything in check, including your hormones. So, yeah, that's a really great win. So, for someone who might be listening and who's feeling stuck, have you got anything that you would say to them, any words of wisdom?
I honestly think, and I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but just giving ourselves a little bit of grace, understanding that you do need to be, follow the program, but also understand that if you try to do it perfectly, it's gonna maybe be counterproductive, and then you're gonna feel like you maybe are not managing, and so I might as well just not do it at all. And so I think that's really important to kind of face it with like a strong sense of what you can and cannot do and frame it around that. And then also just the forum that you provide as a team, just there's always somebody willing to take the question, just ask the questions.
Mm,
There's so many things that you don't know.
yes.
And it was very interesting and helpful, not just to learn from the questions that I put in forum, but like everybody else's knowledge. It just helps a lot.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point that you don't know what you don't know. And like you say, having the opportunity to hear other people's questions opens up a world of things that you may never have even thought about. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's a really powerful resource. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with me and with our listeners. I just know that you're going to have inspired so many women to hopefully go a little bit easier on themselves and
Yeah,
hopefully not take the kind of everything's normal line from the doctors and kind of investigate things a little bit deeper. But
yeah.
yeah, thank you again.
No,
And
you.
is there anything else that you want to share that you feel like we've missed at all?
No. I think we covered everything. Just really, it's a great program. It's very complete in the sense of it's not just telling you. It's not just a diet. It's
Mm,
everything but a diet.
yeah.
And I think it's so important that anybody thinking about doing it understands that because I hate diets and I loved this program. So it's really good. And then you also are all very lovely people. You have a great team, and I felt very supported throughout the whole thing. Which especially living in a country that is not mine, I don't have a lot of support. So that was really important for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again and well done. What an amazing achievement. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.